Details, and we have a great show for you today with Top of the Morning. We are meeting women who are about to be inducted into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame. And these are women who are chosen every year. They're women who have been chosen for lasting contributions to the economic, political, cultural, and societal life of the state, and to provide role models to achievement for our future women leaders. So we have some very distinguished women, and looking forward to introducing them to you. And thank you for joining us. We'll be right back.
That this Maryland Women's Hall of Fame started in 1985, and every year extraordinary women, both living and deceased, have been inducted. And we are so proud of everyone in our state and the role models they provide to inspire the young girls and women and the young boys to learn to respect and admire and be full partners with the women and girls of our state.
Wonderful evening. It's so inspiring, uplifting to see these honorees who've contributed greatly to our state. Just very uplifting and inspiring.
With Judge Motz. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on being inducted into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame. Judge, we're here as people are preparing and coming and arriving for the ceremony tonight where she will be inducted into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame. Apologize for the noise in the background. We're trying to speak up a little bit over that noise, but thank you for your willingness to talk to us today. Judge Motz, I understand you are the first Maryland woman appointed by the President to the United States Court of States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. And only the second woman in history to be in the court. What's an example of the type of cases that your court hears, and what is your role as a judge in considering these cases?
Well, we hear all kinds of cases. The prominent ones are constitutional issues. For example, if you remember some years ago, there was a challenge to VMI, the Virginia Military Institute's its admission of no women. And that was challenged as a violation of the 14th Amendment. And a majority of my colleagues said that that was all right. I wrote a dissent. Supreme Court took the case and reversed. Came out the same way I did. Very gratifying.
Wow.
But in many instances, I've been in the majority. Most recently, I wrote an opinion about the President's health care plans, and the Supreme Court's going to hear that issue later this month. So we shall see.
So a lot of the things we see in the newspaper come across your desk.
And a lot of other things too, ordinary criminal cases, but some really exciting, front pages, you should say.
Right. Well, and you were also only one of two women in a 250-person law class, and the only woman in a law firm after you had been admitted to the bar. What kept you motivated, even in an environment where there weren't very many women around you?
Well, I have to say that I don't think I've ever been discriminated against because I was a woman. They treated me extraordinarily well. Before I ever went to law school, I had gone to all women's schools. So I went from 4 and 12, 16 years of all women's schools to 3 years of basically all male schools. And I would say that my classmates at the University of Virginia Law School were a kinder and more considerate than some of the women that I had gone to school with. So I was exactly at the right time. People were looking to hire a woman, at least to have one. And so there I was, the one. And so when I came to Baltimore, married my husband, came to Baltimore, no big or small law firm had any women. And so they were looking to hire one. And
I see. And you were, in short supply.
Exactly.
So able to hopefully name your price in that case. But that's a different issue, I'm sure. But I guess prior to being judge, you also argued many cases before the state and federal courts. What is one case you were proud of, and what was your strategy in your arguments?
Well, I love arguing cases, and indeed now my law clerks are young lawyers who work for me right out of law school. They asked me, do you rather be a judge or would you rather be arguing cases? and I would much rather be arguing the cases.
Really?
Sometimes I feel like going down there and arguing the case for the lawyer that's in front of me.
Now, why is that?
Well, because you're given a position to espouse. Whereas you're a judge, you're trying to figure out the correct answer, no matter how effectively one side or the other has put it. And so it's much more difficult, at least in my mind. The state of Maryland brought a case against Spiro Agnew to get back the money that he'd stolen from the state, and I argued that case in the appellate courts in Maryland, and actually it was one of the first cases that was televised. You know, they televised
Oh, is that
the oral
right?
argument.
Did that change your strategy
Not at all.
for arguing?
It's amazing. Once you're there, you're arguing to the panel right there, and you're not paying any attention to the audience. Yeah.
And you successfully won.
I did. I have the check, or
my
picture of the check, not the actual thing, and
Sure.
framed in my office with his signature on it.
Well, that's great. Well, I was also interested because even in your busy schedule, you find time to serve in other capacities outside the courtroom. What are some of the things that you love to do or participate in the community?
Well, I've served on the Johns Hopkins boards, both the hospital and the university board. I resigned when the prospect that I might sit on one of the healthcare cases came up, because I didn't want
You have to constantly be vigilant.
Yes, you have to be constantly. And I've served on a number of other boards. I have done a lot of legal education kinds of things. I just sat on the moot court board at the University of Maryland Law School just before I came here today.
Oh, that must have been a lot of fun. Were there some good arguments?
Terrific arguments.
Yeah.
We have some fine young lawyers coming up.
Oh, that's great.
And I'm a really like a homebody, devoted to my kids, Catherine and Daniel and AJ, and my two darling little red-headed grandsons.
Oh my goodness. Are any of them following you in the legal
My daughter
profession?
is assistant chief of staff to the governor.
Is
and
that
she's going to
right?
be here to see this fine occasion.
Oh, fantastic. Well, they must be very proud of you.
I don't know about that, but I'm proud of them.
Well, I did want to ask you, too, what piece of advice would you give to young women early in their careers, or looking ahead and trying to decide, where to spend time, and what goals should they have for their careers?
Well, the standard thing that they tell people in pursuing any kind of career, figuring out what you're going to do, is to do something you really love. And that has proved to me to be correct, that if you are doing something you really love, you can kind of make time for everything in your life. I don't underestimate how difficult it is to have a private life, to have kids, and also to have a demanding career. Whenever I speak in law schools, young women law students particularly ask me about that. And I don't have a magic answer. Right. When I was home doing birthday parties, I wanted to be at work taking depositions. And when I was at work taking depositions, I wanted to be home planning the birthday party. So, I think that you let your children know you love them, and you do your best, and hope it works out.
Judge, any last thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, as I said, I think I would try to do something that you really love, and I would also try to do it really well. There are some often young lawyers, particularly when they first give you a draft of something, will say, well, that's just my first draft. I really could do something much better. You only have one chance to make a first impression. So make it one you can be proud of, you can live with.
Wow, that's fantastic advice, and actually I feel I need to incorporate that as well in what I do.
So I don't have any magic answers. I would try to get something that you really enjoy doing.
Well, that's wonderful advice. Appreciate hearing that. Yeah, well, Judge Motz, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
I enjoyed
Good to
it.
meet you, and we'll be right back.
To Judge Diane Gribbins-Motz.
Good evening. Although the next few moments will be excruciating for her, it is my pleasure to recommend Judge Diana Gribbins-Motz for induction into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame, a very deserving honor. It was perhaps predictable that Diana Gribbin someday would become a very fine lawyer. As the daughter of Daniel Gribbin, a renowned attorney, she was no doubt exposed to high standards at a very early age. Diana is justifiably proud of her dad, who was a Harvard law grad, clerked for the famous Judge Learned Hand, argued landmark cases before the Supreme Court, and was a leader of the prominent Washington law firm, Covington & Burling. But whatever towering figure he may have been, other than influencing his daughter to become a lawyer, had no impact on the person that she turned out to be, because it's entirely the result of her own extraordinary efforts. Diana was raised in Washington, D.C., and graduated from the Stone Ridge School of the Sacred Heart in Bethesda. She then went on to Vassar College and the University of Virginia School of Law, where she served on both the Moot Court Board and the Law Review, and more importantly, met her husband of now 40-plus years, J. Frederick Motz, who is a former long-term Chief Judge of the Federal Court in Maryland and now a senior judge there. Fred and Diana have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. Their daughter Cassie, you heard about, is a future inductee and Deputy Chief of Staff to Governor O'Malley. Their son Daniel and his wife AJ are here this evening. Daniel's a successful realtor and property developer in Baltimore, and they are the proud parents of Jack, age 4, and Peter, age 1. Diana's pride and joy. Diana began her legal career at the preeminent Baltimore law firm then known as Piper & Marburg. She left the firm to start her family, but soon returned to the practice of law in the office of the Maryland Attorney General, where she defeated me quickly in the only case I had against her. Diana was an outstanding litigator, handling the state's most important cases. Although there were many, I will mention just a few. In 1982, when the state intervened in a taxpayer lawsuit against former Vice President Spiro Agnew, Diana argued and won a decision from the Maryland Court of Special Appeals upholding a judgment of nearly $250,000 for unlawful kickbacks and bribes paid to Mr. Agnew. That same year, she was one of the state's lawyers who convinced the Court of Appeals of Maryland to uphold the legislature's new controversial legislative districting plan. And in 1984, Diana and her fellow Assistant Attorney General Bob Zarnock, who's here this evening, challenged the statutory tax exemption that it was then granted to the all-male Burning Tree Country Club, and arguing that it was unconstitutional. These were bold and challenging legal battles, and Diana Motz was in the forefront of each of them. She soon rose to the position of Chief of Litigation in the respected office headed by Attorney General Steve Sachs. In 1986, she returned to private practice as a partner in the Baltimore law firm of Frank Bernstein, Conway & Goldman, where she continued to use her incredible work ethic, forceful intellect, and elegant personal style for the benefit of her firm's clients. During her years in practice, she was training a host of lawyers and future judges, whether she realized it or not, who credit her with inspiring their work, careers, and later success. In the nominating letters submitted for this honor, 2 former colleagues, Judge Susan Gauby of the Federal Court and Judge Ellen Heller, also from the Baltimore City Circuit Court, and another Hall of Fame member, emphasized the enormous influence Diana Motz had on them and on a long list of other prominent Maryland lawyers and judges. Another supporting letter was signed by 20 former law clerks who attested to Judge Motz's unique abilities to challenge them, teach them, and inspire them to make the law work to serve the ends of justice for all. In 1991, Governor Schaefer appointed Diana to the Court of Special Appeals of Maryland. As a current member of that court, I can vouch for the fact that she was clearly a star. Her personal charm and keen intellect continued to be remarked upon and admired by her former colleagues on the state bench. 3 years later, President Clinton nominated Diana for a seat on the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit, where she has now served for over 17 years. Judge Motz has provided a moral compass for her court, crafting eloquent opinions, contesting the continued public funding for the all-male Virginia Military Institute, strengthening the enforcement of domestic violence laws, and bringing a sense of fairness to cases of gender discrimination. She has authored over 280 opinions, which literally speak volumes about her mastery of the law and her ability to balance carefully the claims of conflicting issues, such as the struggle to protect women from the abuses of pornography against the enormous importance of our First Amendment freedoms. Diana's influence extends beyond the courtroom. Her extracurricular activities have included elected membership in the prestigious American Law Institute and board memberships including the Johns Hopkins University Board of Trustees and the Johns Hopkins Hospital Board. The Chief Justice of the United States appointed her to serve on the Federal Court Study Committee in 1989. Diana is a fellow of the American and Maryland Bar Foundations, and she's been honored with a number of awards, including Maryland's Top 100 Women and the Rita C. Davidson Award, another Hall of Fame member, an award given by the Women's Bar Association of Maryland. During her tenure as a judge, Diana has been exceptionally generous with her time, lecturing at law schools around the country and serving as a moot court judge in student competitions, something she did earlier today at the University of Maryland. She has mentored countless young women and men who have had the privilege to serve as her clerks. After attending an all-girls school and a women's college, Diana was one of only 2 women in her law school class. I heard a story earlier this evening about, reported by her daughter Cassie, about her having to sign the honor code at Virginia as a gentleman in those days. Frequently, she was the only female in her various classes, and over time, she became accustomed to being the first woman to achieve any number of career goals. These experiences have no doubt helped to form her values and sensibilities as a judge. In my own judgment, Diana Motz belongs among the impressive array of women in the Hall of Fame for reasons beyond her pioneering efforts for equality for women. She's written insightful opinions about the most pressing national issues of her day, including the rights of enemy combatants who are held at Guantanamo, the challenges to President Obama's health care legislation. Her devotion to the basic principles embodied in our Constitution and Bill of Rights are stated with her characteristic elegance and poignance throughout her impressive body of work. She is truly a woman for all seasons. Some years ago, in the latter days of the Clinton administration, it was widely reported that Judge Motz was on the White House's short list for appointment to the Supreme Court. While that opportunity never materialized, it is a pleasure to speculate on the impact that her intellect and character would have had on that court. Indeed, she has had a personal effect on the working of the Supreme Court. In a 2005 letter to Judge Ellen Hollander, who is here this evening, from Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Justice wrote, "I have been a regular reader of Judge Motz's opinions during her tenure on the Fourth Circuit. They display her mastery of the relevant law, her wisdom in the ways of the world, and, of prime importance in my estimation, her genuine caring about all the people in the society law is meant to serve. In recent years, her views have accorded with the majorities less than they did in her early years on the Court of Appeals. Several of her dissents, I anticipate, will one day reflect the prevailing law. That has already occurred in the Virginia Military Institute case. Judge Motz bravely dissented from the Fourth Circuit's opinion upholding the exclusion of women from VMI. The fine dissenting opinion she composed was at my side as I worked on the Supreme Court's opinion reversing the Court of Appeals judgment. Finer praise for her work would be difficult to imagine. Diana's friends are fierce loyalists, and many of them are here this evening. This is because she is a selfless advocate for others. She's a woman of great class, culture, and dignity, with a very endearing sense of humor and affection for those fortunate enough to be counted among her acquaintances. As the first and only woman from Maryland to serve in the federal judiciary at such a high level, Diana Motz fully deserves the honor you bestow on her this evening. It is my privilege and pleasure to introduce her to you now.
Judge Matriciani, thank you very much. You're right, I am totally and completely embarrassed. I don't think I deserve to be in the company of these very accomplished women, but I am certainly pleased and delighted to accept this honor. I always am a little worried about introductions because, and I'm particularly worried about those that want to summarize you in a single word. That happened to me twice recently, and I was worried that the word would be clumsy, or insomniac, or careless. But I think that there is actually one word that can characterize the career that I have had and the life that I have had, and that word is lucky. I have been lucky in my career. I became a judge at exactly the time when they were looking for women to fill out the bar, if you will. And I've been lucky in the career that I've had and the friends that I have learned from. Those people, the cadre of people that I worked with in the Attorney General's office and then in private practice, several of whom are here today, taught me more than I can tell you. The 2 women that have already been inducted, 2 women lawyers that have already been inducted to the Hall of Fame, Judge Rita Davidson and Judge Ellen Hollander, are totally and completely worthwhile being here. I wish I could say that I measure myself with their accomplishments. I worked for one of them, and I worked with the other one, and I can attest to their caliber of work and devotion to the legal profession. I can't say anything else about my friends except that they have taught me what I've learned about practicing law, what I've learned about giving job justice has been from the friends that I've worked with through the years. And finally, I've been enormously lucky in my family. I found someone that could put up with me and has put up with me for almost 45 years. I have 3 children, all of whom, as far as I'm concerned, should be in the Hall of Fame right this minute. And the 2 most adorable little red-headed grandsons that you could ever imagine. So I thank you all very much for this honor. And I'm overwhelmed. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome Jill Moss Greenberg to the podium. Jill is the Executive Director of the Maryland Women's Heritage Center. There is an enormous plaque that used to be housed at the Maryland Women's Law Center before the Maryland Women's Heritage Center came into being and found a place of its own. And it was moved from the Law Center over to the Maryland Heritage Museum. So this is the first time we've been able to actually present you with this plaque, Jill. This is the plaque for this year, which will now go on the larger one and will reside at the Maryland Women's Heritage Center.
This is exciting for all of you who've supported the Women's Hall of Fame, the Maryland Commission for Women, the women legislators, who just for everyone's information, this is their 40th anniversary, and we had the very first women's caucus of any state legislature in the country. So we have many things to be proud of in this state. And the Women's Heritage Center, the Maryland Women's Heritage Center, is the first of its kind, a comprehensive center to honor all the contributions of our foremothers, our sisters, our aunts, our grandmothers, and as well house the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame with these incredible people like the 6 that are inducted tonight. I congratulate you on behalf of everyone at the Heritage Center. We hope all of you got this yellow sheet to learn more about the center and hopefully support it. We are hopeful this year we'll get also some additional funding from the state of Maryland to help finish the Hall of Fame, because about half the women are up now and we want to get the other half up, because as you hear tonight, every year we say there can't be more extraordinary people. And when you hear these stories, isn't it incredible? And so I think we have a village. We thank you, Gwen, for sharing your village with us. We thank all of you for being part of the village honoring Maryland women, and we hope you'll come visit the Heritage Center and become a supporter and continue to build the Hall of Fame.
Because I'd like to recognize the dignitaries that are with us tonight, and I can do the judicial branch pretty well, but the legislative branch I'm going to need some help with. I'd like to acknowledge District Judge Ellen Hollander. I saw that she was here, and Magistrate Judge Susan Bobby. And if you can stand up, so I know who you are, but thank you. And Judge Donna from the Court of Special Appeals, along with Judge Cincinnati, who's not on the Circuit Court of Special Appeals, and retired Judge Heller from the Baltimore City Circuit Court.
Fred Motz.
Susan?
Yeah, that's right.
Fred Motz.
Well, Fred Motz as well, retired from the district court. I'd like to acknowledge the members of the Women's Caucus, but also our executive director, Marcia Weiss. Can you stand up? She runs the whole Women's Caucus. We have Delegate Aniso Gutierrez. Could you stand up? Kelly is still here. Is she still here? I know Senator Kathy Pugh was here, but she had to leave early. Are there any other members of the legislature here? They're probably in committee meetings. Anyway, on behalf of the women's legislators, thank you for letting us be a wonderful part of this event. Thank you. I'd also just like to briefly acknowledge that two women passed away suddenly. They were going to be here. Ariana Reeves and Elaine Dunkel was a member of the Daughters of Abraham of Southern Maryland, as well as the Legal Women Voters, and was an active participant well into her 97th year. I want to give special thanks to the women legislators of Maryland, the Maryland Department of Human Resources, and the Friends of the Maryland Commission for Women, who are all of our sponsors. And finally, I would like to really thank Bonnie Ariano, our special assistant to the Secretary at Dallas, and again, Crystal Young and Ellie Elgin for everything that they did to make this responsible.
I just wanted to acknowledge that AARP has helped to sponsor the Hall of Fame this year and is helping us to be able to put this plaque at the Maryland Women's Heritage Center. So I want to thank them as well.
This was a wonderful affair this evening, as it usually is. As the immediate past chair, I'm honored to continue to be here and watch this event just really blossom and prosper and recognize such deserving women of Maryland.